reason why your episode of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air resonates
Yeah.
so much with my generation and millennials and Gen Z is we all felt Will Smith's pain, and the whole fighting. I'm gonna be a man. I'm gonna be all right. Like that whole Martin. I'm gonna be all right. Like we're taught to suck in the tears and not show. Like I won't let you see me sweat or see me cry or as a sign of defeat. Knowing what you knew about your own family history, were the creators of the Fresh Prince of Bel Air or Will Smith himself, were they any of them aware?
No, no,
You didn't share with them?
no, no. And it's
This
interesting.
information hasn't been really shared publicly.
Wow. Well, I thank you for sharing that because it's touched me.
How the universe works. They knew nothing about this, hadn't been talking about this. I kept it to myself. I'm just beginning to open up about this, but they should choose me to tell this story at that time in my life. And here we are talking about it, which is a very deep subject for all of us.
How
Yeah.
was that to shoot? Did it make it in your head, or were you just a consummate professional and
As I
just,
said, tell that story, find the seed of that story and sharing it and being that man who rejected his son because of his background, his fear, his pain. That moment when I'm silent. So I went through so much in that silence that's not being said when I'm walking out the door was nobody saw that pain. But I went through personally. So I had no words for it. And the writers had no idea this was going down, or why they were chose to write this particular show for me, or why Will said, I want him to do this part.
oh,
They didn't know. But the universe knew. And it was the beginning of this conversation we're having right now.
And as a daughter, it was, a hard thing to watch as well because my father growing up, you know, um, was always on the road, and when everyone thinks, when you're this kid of I hate to use the word celebrity,
How lucky
that
you are.
you have this privileged life and everything's great and you're at these fabulous parties and your parents are ever present. But no, I would tell people when you see my father on television, that's time that he's not with me, he's not with my siblings. And especially when we were young, the only times we would see him is during breaks for school and he was working because those were prime times. And people thought it was cool because at one point he was hosting all the Disney specials, in the holidays. And yeah,
You know,
great, you get to cut the line at Disney, but I still don't have my father. My mother was amazing. She did everything that she could within, herself. But, we also had to grapple, and watching that episode, for
ooh,
me was
ooh,
especially
my God.
emotional because,
What was going through your head when you saw it?
Yeah.
well, it was interesting. It was an interesting time in my life period, but I was probably in college around that time. And my father and I had gone through a lot, like just
mhm.
emotionally. We've always had this like kind of hard relationship because even as a little kid, it was this whole thing of dad's coming home. Oh my God, dad's home. And I would kind of stand back because I was resentful because I didn't have time with my dad, And then it was always the limo's here. Okay, the assistants are here putting everything in the
Mhm.
car and he's off again, and I always was kind of the defiant one. I remember this one instance. I don't know if you remember this, Dad. We were living in Saddle River because my parents decided to move us out of Hollywood. So I was about 8 at the time and, spoiled, had the Apple computer and the television in my room and everything like that. And I said something to you, Dad, and you were getting ready to go somewhere because the limo was outside. He was dressed up in his tux. And he said, "You said what to me?" And I said, whatever I said. And he like was coming at me and I was in my nightgown getting ready to go to bed. I got up and I ran across this property we had, huge property. And I
Mhm.
remember standing in this creek that we had because I knew he didn't have time to come into that creek after me. And we just stood there looking at each other. So, and he's like,
What you gonna do?
You
You
got
gotta
the
go somewhere.
jabbing, bam, 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 out.
you better get out of that creek. You better get out. You better come here and talk to me as your father. I said, He's like, I'm taking everything out of your room. And I was just like, okay, great. Cause you're not going to be there when I get back, you know?
Right.
So that part, when we had this relationship for a very long time. And when I did see the episode, I felt that pain on the other side of it, where he felt the pain as the adult leaving the child. So it
Mm.
is very emotional, I think,
It,
for all of the kids.
so, in track of that character and the character I have had to be in my life, and I miss those moments now of being there for them. It's an emptiness that I grovel with every day of you did what? Why wasn't I there? And but I was raised of a mindset of my mother was about providing.
Mhm.
And so she would often say to me, we'd be sitting around our tenement building and we have one of those little pot-belly stove. And she'd say to me, Bunny, because she couldn't pronounce Benjamin, and I understood this. She couldn't pronounce Benjamin. Now look at my father. They always called me Joe, or she called me Bunny.
Mm.
She said, Bunny, if all we have is a donut, you will eat the donut, and I'll eat the whole.
Oh, wow.
And so, that was the way I was raised. And so when this opportunity of showbiz fell upon me, all I knew was to do was provide, and got caught up in the madness. This all you read about all this in the book. But it's about that missing part, which I grovel with. I'm
And
so
as
I'm
a
so
daughter, I don't want him to feel guilty about it because I'm very privileged. I don't have college loans.
Right.
That was all paid for. I went
And
to
you can
private
afford the
school.
work to the mental work and the counseling to
Yes, yes. And my father and I have had this tremendous journey. And I hate, and it's heavy on my heart that he has this guilt
But
because
Tabara, the fact that y'all are sharing this, I just got to say, and I know Amir is feeling this too. Like, this is the result of having a black boomer daddy. Like, this trauma is not, you are not alone in this
Well, it's
thing and having to
epigenetics.
understand, yeah, and
it
having
is
to
in
Generational.
understand your
genetics.
father's
Yeah.
trauma. And
Yeah.
also, because the beautiful thing to me, as I look at you guys and beautiful daughters, where we are now, where you are with him wherever he goes, and how you take care of him is
hmm
just
Along with my
a
sister
beautiful,
Karan.
yeah.
Yes.
You and Karan, I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah.
and Malika, she's out there somewhere.
Yeah.
And
We love you,
Malika, yes.
Malika.
The way the girls take care of you,
How
I should
many
say.
children in total?
Yeah, I had four.
Okay.
I had five children. I had Naja, whom I lost in an automobile accident, and my son.
Okay.
So I have three beautiful daughters. And I'm so honored and privileged, not honored, honest, I'm blessed